Hello everyone, welcome to this week's Tease Towel. I've been having a little bit of technical difficulties, so I'm here. I'm here late, but I'm here. What I want to talk about, I actually want to talk a little bit about our trip that we just did the last couple days. And the reason why I want to talk about it is because have you ever noticed how sometimes the best part of trips or even life are the ones that we didn't plan? This was exactly what this trip to Bisbee reminded me of, and it made me want to share a bit about this because we went down for a little 2-day adventure, and it turned into some unexpected things. So first off, we stayed at the Eldorado Suites Hotel, which was a charming old building full of character and history. And I love that place because it's like you can almost feel some of that history in the walls. This was a building that was built in 1914 as a apartment complex, and at the time it was more of a luxury apartment complex. It was newspapers back then called it one of the finest buildings of its kind in the country. So it's fun to imagine that time in the century of a century ago, who might have lived there and stayed there, and just that stepping back into time. Our plan was actually to explore Bisbee, see the sights, but possibly even take in a mine tour or even one of the ghost tours. I love those kinds of things. But so I was very excited about that. But what can tend to happen is the unexpected. And what actually happened was, because we were there Tuesday and Wednesday, a lot of the things were closed. And so we spent a lot of after our initial exploring, starting to search for a lunch place, and ended up walking way more because a lot of the places were closed, because many of the places there are only open Thursday through the weekend. So in the end, we were pretty tired and ended up not doing the mine tour or the ghost tour. And I do have to admit that first thing in the morning, as I realized we're not doing any of that, I did feel a bit of disappointment. We had, I had those plans pictured in my mind, and things didn't go as expected. But then something shifted. We went for a place called Bisbee Breakfast Club, and it was a mile down the road, so we had to drive there. Great food, that small town charm, that throwback in time kind of charm, and that was exactly what we needed. And it's from there where the magic of the detour happened. This is where we discovered the old town of Lowell, Arizona. What used to be a bustling mining town now stands almost frozen in time. It was established in 1880 and was a part of the boom, the copper mining boom of the early 19th and early 20th centuries. And this became one of the largest producers of copper. And I say Bisbee because in the 1900s, Lowell was kind of incorporated into part of Bisbee. But Lowell was established during this time, and it was booming and growing because it was right next to the mine. And a lot of the miners lived there as in their families, and Bisbee itself was becoming overcrowded, and it's just the location was ideal. So its peak growth was in the 1920s and 1940s. And at one point at its peak, there were over 6,000 homes there. And it was named by who, I can't remember who, I heard had named it that as one of the liveliest. It was just a really bustling town and one of the liveliest towns in Arizona. But as time went on, as the mine continued to grow, this is the Lavender Pit Mine. It was amazing. It covers over 300 acres, and it's an open pit mine and goes down 900 feet deep. It was so, so cool. But as the expansion of the mines in the 50s and 60s, they started encroaching into the town of Lowell. And actually, about, from what I remember hearing, over half of the residents had to be relocated. Those homes were destroyed. Some of the business were destroyed. And over time, Louisville became kind of a ghost town. And actually the mine closed in 1974. But what happened, and this is what's super cool about it, is the Lowell Americana Project took over, and they were interested in preserving that main street called Erie Street of Lowell, and it became, it just started this extraordinary process of becoming a public art project that is a living museum. It's like a time capsule of the 1950s, 40s, and 50s. So we had no idea it was there. It was just by our plans changing and going to find a cute little fun breakfast spot that we found it. And it became one of the most highlights, actually one of the highlights of our trip. So it was super cool. If you ever get a chance to go there, it is so, so fun. And a lot of my pictures that I posted yesterday were from that. There's old cars, there's the old signs. It's just really, really amazing. Then on our trip home, I mean, we've been to Tombstone before, but on our trip home, we decided to just stop in Tombstone and walk the streets again. It's, you know, it's very touristy, but there is something kind of incredible about walking down Allen Street and imagining all the Wild West gunfights and the saloons. And there's actually the legendary Birdcage Theater, which I think is fascinating because it is the most famous honky-tonk in America between 1881 and 1889. And even the New York Times, and this is just crazy to think that in New York back then versus, you know, in Arizona, they called it the wildest, wickedest night spot between Basin Street and the Barbary Coast. So I love learning those pieces of history and coming on those things that just take you back in time and remind you how much life has changed, and in some ways how much it hasn't. People then and people now are always looking for connection and adventure and purpose and a good story to tell. So as I was thinking back on the trip, even though things didn't go as planned, it's exactly how it happened, how things should unfold. And we definitely plan to go back and explore some of those other things. But it's those moments where it's easy to feel frustrated and disappointed. But if we can just take a breath and stay curious and stay open and let go of how we thought it should be and go with just the curiosity of what we might find around the corner. Sometimes something better even is waiting. So maybe it's a lesson, maybe it's laughter, maybe it's a story we'll tell for years, but it's the beauty of detours. They often are not mistakes, they're invitations. They're invitations to experience something new, to slow down, to shift our perspective, and to find joy in the unexpected. So as I think about this little two-day adventure to Bisbee and Lowell and Tombstone, I realized that those places don't just offer history, they offer reminders. And we definitely need to go back and experience more of that. And it's just for us, it's just such a quick, easy drive here. The joy doesn't always live in the plan. Sometimes it lives in the pause. And the best discoveries often happen when we're lost or when we're least expecting it. And the real adventure is learning to just let go and let embrace wherever the road takes us. So here's my tease towel thought for the week. That was kind of a tongue twister. When life doesn't go as planned, don't fight it, follow it, because you never know what hidden gems you're going to discover when you find joy in the detour. That's my message this week for Tease Towel. Thank you if you hopped on. Say hi if you watch this. If you watch this on replay, I love the support and it helps boost my visibility. So please send the comments, send the loves, send all of that, and share this if you wish. So I will see you next week on Tease Towel. Thanks so much. Bye.